I thought moving into a quiet suburban neighborhood would be a dream come true. Safe streets, good schools, friendly neighbors, or so I believed. But the night I hosted a simple family party, everything changed. Music barely filled the air when flashing lights surrounded my home, and I suddenly found myself accused of crimes I hadn't committed. It wasn't about noise. It wasn't about rules. It was about something far uglier. How far would one neighbor go to try to silence me? For years, I dreamed of owning a home where I could finally feel settled and proud. When I signed the papers for a modest house in a gated community, it felt like a milestone. Not just for me, but for my entire family. We had worked hard, saved every dollar, and now we were living in a place many said we didn't belong. At first, I ignored the stares. Walking my dog, I'd notice curtains twitch. Jogging in the morning, I could feel eyes follow me, but I brushed it off, telling myself it was just small-town curiosity. I wanted to believe that with time, people would see me for who I was, a neighbor, not a stranger. Most days were peaceful. I tended my garden, shared laughter with my kids, and tried to create a sense of belonging in a place that still felt cold. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that no matter how much I smiled, someone was waiting for me to slip up. So, when I decided to throw a small party, just family, food, and music, it felt like an opportunity to relax and celebrate life finally. But underneath that excitement lingered unease. Because in neighborhoods like this, joy sometimes comes with a price. I had no idea that one evening of laughter on my back patio would set off a chain of events that spiraled far beyond a simple noise complaint. That night would expose the truth about who really controlled this community and how far they were willing to go to remind me I didn't belong. The night of the party started beautifully. The grill sizzled in the backyard, kids ran barefoot across the grass, and music floated through the air, soft enough to talk over but lively enough to set the mood. For the first time since moving in, I felt like myself again. Surrounded by family, I finally believed this neighborhood could feel like home. But comfort doesn't last long when someone is watching for your every move. From the corner of my yard, I noticed a figure standing still just beyond the fence line. A neighbor, arms crossed, phone pressed to her ear. Her eyes locked on me with that unmistakable glare, the one that says, "You don't belong here." My stomach tightened, but I pushed it down. Maybe she was calling a friend. Maybe it was nothing. Minutes later, the flashing red and blue lights tore through the night. My yard fell silent. Children froze. Plates of food halfway lifted, music cut off. Officers moved quickly through the gate, scanning the space as if they were entering hostile territory. "Noise complaint," one of them muttered, though his tone suggested more. The way they eyed me, not the crowd, spoke volumes. I tried to explain it was just a family gathering, nothing out of control. But before I could finish, one officer asked for my ID. Out of dozens of people, I was the only one questioned. My guests looked on, uneasy, while my heart pounded with humiliation. And there she was. My neighbor, smiling faintly in the shadows. She had made the call. Not because of the volume, but because she saw my joy as a threat. The officers lingered, waiting for any reason to escalate further. I kept my voice steady, though inside, anger and fear collided. Each second felt like a test. One wrong word, one sudden move, and the night could end in disaster. Eventually, they left without issuing a citation, but the damage was done. My party was ruined. The laughter had been replaced by whispers. My children asked why the police thought we were bad people. I had no answer that could ease the sting. The next morning, a letter from the HOA appeared on my doorstep. It claimed my gathering had disturbed the peace and violated community standards. The warning was sharp, cold, and threatening fines for future incidents. It was clear now. This wasn't about rules. It was about control. One neighbor had decided that people like me didn't deserve joy, comfort, or even a voice in this neighborhood, and she had the power of the HOA and the police at her fingertips. That was the moment I realized silence was no longer an option. If I let this go, it wouldn't stop at one ruined night. It would happen again and again, until I was pushed out completely. So I made a choice. I wasn't just going to defend myself, I was going to fight back. And the fight I started would expose the ugliness hiding beneath the surface of this community in a way no one could ignore. When I filed the lawsuit, I knew it would be a battle, but nothing prepared me for the weight of sitting in that courtroom. Across from me sat the woman who had called the cops on my family, her expression smug, as if this was just another inconvenience in her day. She was backed by the HOA, their lawyers armed with paperwork and polished arguments, determined to paint me as the problem. As testimony began, I listened as neighbors I had never spoken to twisted simple truths into accusations. They described my party as chaotic, rowdy, and even threatening. Words meant to stir fear, not describe reality. And every false claim felt like a knife, cutting deeper into the belief that I could ever be treated as an equal in this community. But then, my attorney presented the evidence, the noise level reports from that night, the security footage showing nothing more than family enjoying a backyard evening, and the chilling audio of the 911 call itself. On the recording, her words cut through the room. She didn't describe loud music, she described me. My skin color, my guests. She used the word suspicious over and over until suspicion sounded like a crime. The courtroom fell silent. For the first time, her confidence cracked. As the judge leaned forward, I felt the air shift. The weight of every false accusation, every stare, every attempt to push me out, it all boiled down to this moment. Would the system side with power and prejudice, or would it finally see the truth? My chest tightened as the gavel struck once, echoing through the room. The decision was about to be read, and in that heartbeat of silence, I realized whatever happened next would change everything. The judge's decision was clear. The HOA and my neighbor were guilty of racial discrimination and harassment. Not only did I win the case, but the court ordered damages to be paid and mandated changes within the HOA to prevent future incidents. For the first time since moving into that neighborhood, I felt seen, not just as a homeowner, but as a human being whose dignity mattered. But victory didn't erase the pain. It didn't erase the humiliation of standing in my own yard while police officers questioned my right to celebrate with my family. It didn't erase the way my children's eyes filled with confusion and fear that night. Those scars remain long after the gavel fell. What it did give me was proof that silence is never the answer. If I had ignored that letter, if I had accepted the injustice as just the way things are, nothing would have changed. My children would have learned to shrink themselves instead of standing tall. My community would have continued to allow prejudice to masquerade as policy. This story isn't just about me. It's about countless others who have faced the same kind of quiet, everyday racism hidden behind HOA bylaws, noise complaints, or whispered assumptions. Too often, it goes unchecked because people are afraid to fight back. I learned that change doesn't always come easy, and it doesn't come without cost. But it does come when someone refuses to stay silent. So I'll ask you this. If injustice showed up on your doorstep, would you turn away or would you stand and fight? Because sometimes one person's refusal to be silent is what sparks the change an entire community needs.